Hi, we're out on the range today, so please bear with gunfire you hear in the background. And today we're talking about 22 short ammunition. But before we even go there, there's something about 22s in general I want to show you. Let's take a look. Now, one of the things I hear about 22 ammunition is occasionally people will say that 22 rounds won't go through thick clothing. Well, what I've got is our favorite target, soda jugs, and I've got 4 of them taped together to represent you, and I got a bag full of clothing from the Goodwill. So let's dress up our target. Now, here's an interesting side note. Somebody else here on the range today was shooting a 17 HMR rifle, and at 100 yards he shot this quarter. Hit it on the first try. Not bad. Now our target is wearing a t-shirt, a polo shirt, a sweatshirt, some kind of insulated vest thing, and a fairly heavy winter coat. And I'll go back 7 yards and I'm going to shoot it with my Smith & Wesson Model 63 with a 3-inch barrel. Now this is a 22 long rifle and is loaded with CCI Mini Mag 40 grain round nose. Let's see what kind of penetration we get. Well, it looks like that story about 22s being stopped by clothing is partially true. All of the bullets were stopped by the clothing on the back of the target. Now, the point of this is, if a 22 long rifle is really underestimated and you hear a lot of stories about its lack of power that turn out not to be true, just imagine how much people underestimate a 22 short. And I'm telling you, I could go on for days about the mythical, fictional limitations people put on 22 ammo. But let's get to today's focus, which is 22 short ammunition. Now, in talking about 22 short, I want to compare it to 22 long rifle and to a pellet gun. In this case, this Gammo Whisper G2 caliber 177 pellet rifle. But before we do anything, let me show you a close-up of what 22 short ammunition looks like. Now, on your left is a 22 short, in the middle is a 22 long rifle, and both of those are compared to the quarter that's on your right. Now that we know what it looks like, I'm going to shoot different types of ammunition through the chronograph and see what kind of numbers we get, but I'll spare you the tedious process of watching me do that. Well, I've shot through the chronograph and crunched the numbers, and here they are. Now, with the pellets, I used Crossman pellets, but all the 22 ammunition was CCI, and the test gun was this Henry lever action rifle. And what we see is with our standard long rifle, a mean velocity of 1,036, but with our target short ammo, that's 839. So the 22 long rifle, quite a bit more powerful than the 22 short, even though the short has a lighter bullet. But when we go down to a little bit hotter loaded stuff with our CCI Mini Mag, with this 40 grain round nose bullet, we see a mean velocity of 1167. And with our 22 short hollow point, we see a velocity of 1,097, only 70 feet per second less than the long rifle ammunition. But we have to remember that's a 40 grain projectile compared to a 27 grain projectile for the short. Now, with our pellet rifle, I got a mean velocity of 898. And that sounds impressive. We see that's more than some 22 short ammunition. But velocities from pellet rifles can vary greatly. There are some very high-powered, high-dollar air rifles that you might even hunt deer with. But that's some really expensive, high-tech stuff. When people try to make the claim that their pellet gun is as powerful as a 22, there may be some truth to that, but not when you're talking about your Crossman 760 or your Daisy Red Ryder BB gun. Now, the pellet rifle I was using today, the Whisper G2 model, which I paid $147 for, I was able to buy because of donations to the Patreon account, so thank you, everybody. That's getting a little ways up the scale of serious pellet rifles, and we can see some what appears to be serious performance out of it. But we also have to take into consideration that this is an 8 grain projectile compared to the 29 grain projectile here. And we have to ask, okay, how do these numbers on the page translate into effectiveness on a real target? Let's see if we can put that to the test. Now, what I've got here is cans of tomato soup, and I'll go back 7 yards and I'll shoot the ones on your left with our pellet rifle with its 8 grain hollow point pellet, and the ones on your right with the 22 rifle with the CCI 22 short 27 grain hollow point. Let's see how the results compare. Now, those pellets went clear through these cans of soup, and that is impressive. But in this particular case, with this particular pellet gun, comparing the two, there just isn't much comparison. Now, shooting those soup cans, these 22 short hollow points seemed to perform pretty well, but we didn't recover the projectiles. What kind of hollow point expansion are we really getting at the fairly low velocity that these 22 short hollow points are delivering? Well, we've got a water jug set up, which is really an ideal target for hollow point expansion, and I'll shoot it from 10 yards. Let's see what happens. And here's our two projectiles, and you can see that the hollow point expansion is pretty good. So with the rifle, we got pretty good expansion. Now let's see how our 22 short hollow points do when fired from 10 yards through this 3-inch barreled revolver. And out of the handgun, that expansion is really good. Now there's an important point I want to make about the performance of 22 ammunition, and I can really illustrate it with these two handguns. I'll go back 7 yards and I'll shoot the soda jug on your left with this one and the soda jug on your right with this one. Now that was quite a bit of difference in performance, because this was a 22 long rifle hollow point and this was a 9x19 hollow point. And although you can see the 22 long rifle is significantly less powerful than other calibers, it's still not to be underestimated. Oh, and yes, this gun does fit my hand better than this one does. Now there's one other thing I want to show you about 22 short ammunition. It's the same diameter as 22 long rifle ammunition. So right now I've just got a bunch of them mixed up in my hand. And in guns like this revolver, you can load 22 short or 22 long rifle in the revolver, depending on what you think your needs or what the availability of ammunition is at that particular point. But not all guns will work that way. Now, I mixed the 22 long rifles and the 22 shorts in this revolver just to make the point, but there's a caveat that comes with doing that. I'll go back 10 yards and I'll shoot the target on your left with 22 long rifle and the target on your right with the shorts, and let's see how the groups compare. Now I sighted this handgun in with the 22 long rifle ammunition and they're fairly centered. And you can see with the 22 shorts, the point of impact is definitely different. And so when you change ammunition, it can change your point of impact. The degree of change will depend on your gun and your ammunition choices. Some rifles are labeled caliber 22 short, long, or long rifle right on the barrel, and those are usually single shots, bolt actions, some pumps. A lot of autoloaders like this Nylon 66 are labeled 22 long rifle only. They're blowback operated, and a lot of 22 short ammunition does not have enough blowback to make the action cycle correctly. See, it didn't cycle it. In fact, it didn't even get the empty out of the chamber. And when I go to try to chamber another one, it double feeds because these shorts are too short to cycle with the way this gun's designed. Also, because 22 short is becoming less common, it can be surprisingly expensive. Yesterday, for this box of CCI 22 short ammunition, I paid $9.97, while at the same store, a box of CCI Mini Mag 22 long rifle was less than $8. Well, what's the real takeaway from all of this? Well, one, as I've said before, don't underestimate a 22, and don't underestimate a 22 short. I've found that for dispatching vermin that were the size of possums or raccoons, with proper projectile placement, 22 short was sufficient. Now, as far as somebody making the claim that their pellet gun is as powerful as a 22 short, that claim is not entirely fictitious. There are some pellet rifles that are pretty powerful. But anybody saying that has either spent quite a bit of money on a pellet gun, or he's never fired a 22 short and doesn't really know what he's talking about. So, as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the 22 short video.